What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and today I've got another cut or carry knife review, and this time I'm looking at the Benchmade Proper. So this is a knife that I've had for a little while, have carried quite a bit, and is a knife that really intrigued me for a long time, and so I finally picked one up in the past year and have been carrying it a decent bit and have some thoughts. So this is the green micarta version, and it's got the clip point blade. You can get them, I think, in a sheep's foot and some other blades, maybe drop point, I can't remember. But this is a slip joint knife, so no lock, and it does have a half stop there. Again, green micarta, there's lots of different handle configurations for this. But yeah, so kind of an interesting Benchmade, not your classic Benchmade. So I was very intrigued and excited to check it out. All right, let's do size comparisons and then we'll get to it. First up, a knife that I think compares very well to it, the Civivi Rustic Gent, which is one of my favorites. This is a lockback, not a slip joint, but otherwise very close knife to the Proper. Let me also throw up the K-Bar Dozier, which is a favorite of mine. So one thing you'll see interesting is that while the Proper is a smaller knife and meant to be carried in your pocket, no clip, it's actually compares very well in size to kind of a full-size clip knife. So if you look at that up against the Dozier, you know, pretty close there. And then let's just throw up a larger knife in the Manix 2 here. And you know what? Actually, let me also throw up my Cadet, just so you can see what this looks like up against a classic Swiss Army knife. So good size knife, and I think very functional and practical. All right, let's talk about things that I like about the Benchmade Proper. First of all, the blade. I really like the blade. Everything from the finish. I actually really like this finish up here. I think that the clip point is very nice. I think it's got a very nice grind for the type of blade that it is. If you think about kind of a classic in the pocket slip joint carry, I think it's a fairly robust blade, pretty thick spine there, but still allows you to do nice slicing and kind of everyday tasks. I really like the clip point, both in the kind of aesthetics of it, but also the utility. Gives you a nice tip to the blade there, but still a good spine up here, so you're not going to break the tip off very easily. Overall, just I think a nice looking blade. Plus you don't have a ton going on. You've got the Benchmade logo here, but plain and simple, and I really like that. So the blade is awesome. This is also not surprisingly S30V for Benchmade, which I love. I love their S30V. It's kind of their standard, but I really like it. So I think it's great to have a slip joint in a steel like that. Other things that I really like, so I was really drawn to the green micarta. In the hand, it's not quite as textured as I would like it, but aesthetically I really like it, and I think it's a great look for this knife. It just gives it that kind of classic look. I mean, this knife is kind of a, you know, modern interpretation maybe of a classic knife, which I feel like I've said many times before, but I think it holds true for this one too. You know, I think it looks very nice. I think it works pretty well. I do wish it was a little bit more textured, but it's nice looking. Other things that I like, ergonomics are pretty good for what this is. Nothing negative about it necessarily. So nothing great there. I do like a little bit of jimping right there. It's not that great. You don't notice it a ton. I don't know that you really need it on a knife like this. But the ergos aren't bad. I'm glad that they didn't do anything too fancy here. So not bad there. Other things I like, how thin this knife is. This really carries very well because it's a knife that's supposed to be carried in the pocket. When you compare it to something like the Rustic Gent here, if you can tell, it is a hair thinner. I don't have calipers with me. It is a hair thinner, and it feels a lot thinner. There's a lot of contouring on the handles here, and the scales themselves are very thin. You can see that shaping. And so it feels, I think, even smaller than it is, where the Rustic Gent, which I love, is just a little bit more proud. It's a little bit taller, with a little bit less rounding on the edges. and so it really takes out kind of the full width. This really minimizes with some of that shaping, and I think for a knife that's not going to be carried on a clip and either carried in a slip or just loose in the pocket, that's a really great thing because it minimizes the overall size of the knife. So I really like that. Other things, I would say just overall kind of carryability. This is a knife that is fairly lightweight and very easy to slip into the pocket. It carries very well. You don't have a ton sticking out, pretty straight profile. Overall, it's just a very accessible knife. It's one that you would find yourself carrying, not necessarily one that you would have to think about. And it kind of makes sense for maybe an office carry or just kind of going out. So it's pretty versatile. The other thing I'll point out, the last thing that I like, and this is merging into likes and dislikes. I do like that they did something a little bit more than a classic nail nick. So this is a little bit deeper than what you might find on a more traditional nail nick, and a little bit wider, so it does make it more accessible. You don't have to actually get your nail in there. It's enough to just pinch. And so it is better than what it could have been. Although I would say, starting to get into the things that I dislike, I don't know why you wouldn't continue that on the other side and give you a little bit more texture to pinch on. I find my finger kind of slipping right there. And so it's not a great opening mechanism, but it's probably better than just a classic nail nick. So that's kind of a thing I like, and a thing that I think they could have done a lot better. Things that I don't like, I think I mentioned already that kind of slick. You do have some texture there. I don't know if you can hear that, but you do have some texture there, but the micarta is not super textured and pretty slick, to be honest. So I think it looks nice, but maybe not quite as functional. Other things that I dislike about the knife, overall, I do like the knife. I think the thing that I dislike about the knife is more, it's more something that I realized after I got this knife. So before I picked up the Rustic Gent, I was carrying the Proper quite a bit, and I really enjoyed it. And after I got the Rustic Gent, I really stopped carrying the Proper altogether. And it's really for one reason. I think if I were to compare these knives, I actually probably prefer the blade on this. It's a little bit stouter. I'm a little bit more worried about doing damage to the Rustic Gent. You can see how thin that blade is, which is an awesome thing for some applications, but like overall utility, I probably trust this a little bit more. And there are certainly some things that I really like about this. I mean, obviously S30V I would take in a heartbeat, but the biggest thing to me is that it is a slip joint, and I know that that's kind of the whole appeal of it. But for me, I think as I use the Rustic Gent, I just realized that like a lockback knife is a much safer and more practical mechanism than a slip joint. Like, slip joints exist for a reason, but not really one that I need. So I found myself just continually wishing that it had a lock. It's just I would much prefer to have a lock on my knife than not. And I don't know if it would make sense for this knife. I think it would. I think it would actually look pretty good as a lock back. But it's a knife that I really liked until I got it up next to this one. And then I just really started carrying this over it. So not really a fault of the knife itself, because I do think it's a good knife, and I'm sitting here trying to critique it, and I don't really have much else to say. I mean, the ergonomics could be better. I could do without this little hump here. It would make things a little bit better, but I think the overall size, the weight is really good. I wish there were more textured handles, but I love the blade. I wish the nail nick maybe was a little bit different. But apart from that, I can't really critique it. It's fine. It's just not one that I've been carrying all that much since I got the Gent. I will say too that Benchmade in my head has always had this certain look and feel and kind of audience that they're going after, and I really applaud them for doing a knife like this, because Benchmade's, I have a couple that I really like, but a lot of their stuff just doesn't appeal to me, and this really appeals to me. I really like this knife, and I think they did an overall excellent job with it. And so I applaud Benchmade for making something like this. I hope that they continue to do stuff like this, because I think some of these more classic knives really do have an appeal and have an audience. One thing that I will say I just thought about as I'm talking that is seriously lacking, although not surprising on a slip joint, is the fact that I can't take it down. Whereas again, on like the rustic gent, I'm able to strip this knife down. Little thing and not really surprising given the type of knife that it is, but definitely a little detractor. Overall, cutter carry. I'll call this a carry because I was pretty regularly before I got the gent, and I really like the knife, and I think it definitely serves a utility. Will it stay in my collection? Probably not. Not a ton does these days, but it is still a very, very good knife, and one that I'm very glad that I got to check out. I do recommend this knife. Definitely not for everybody, but I really enjoyed it. So hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.